watching Saints Now, presented by Prize Picks. For this video, we got winners and losers from Saints OTAs as the offseason activities have come to a close. Up next, we got mandatory minicamp, and we're going to go through the players whose stock is up and stock is down after the first portion of OTAs, the voluntary portion, if you will. But get ready for week one here with us at Saints Now by Chat Sports. We got coverage of OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and training camp coming up in the coming weeks, and then we're going to have preseason watch parties. We're going to be back with watch parties all throughout the regular season and hopefully the playoffs as well. And if you want 100% content by fans, for fans, for 100% free, then make sure you lock us in and help us get to 60,000 subscribers today. Let's start off with quarterback Tyler Shough as an OTA winner. I think Tyler Shough, he's a player that is looking sharper. He's more decisive when he's throwing the football, and he's honestly just looking more confident and more aggressive operating the Saints offense. He hasn't been perfect by any means, but you really shouldn't expect that at this portion of the offseason, or honestly, you really shouldn't expect perfection at any type of practice. I want to see them trying to find new things, incorporate new things, make mistakes. That's okay. That's what this part of the offseason is for. It's to iron all of these issues out. But the second practice that was open to media was his most impressive, according to Nick Underhill, Ross Jackson, a lot of the guys. Nick Underhill did a great job logging all of the throws. In his third practice, he was 5 for 8 with a 5.5 average depth of target. Second practice, he was 6 of 10 with an 11.9 average depth of target, and in his first practice, 10 of 12 with a 5.3 average depth of target. So you can see that they were doing a lot of different things, pushing the ball downfield, operating underneath, doing a little bit of everything all throughout OTAs. And I think Tyler Shough is headed into minicamp in a really good spot. The arrow is pointing upwards for Tyler Shough. The Saints quarterback is getting the ball to a lot of different guys, especially with Chris Olave and Jordyn Tyson not always being active at practices. He continues to pepper the tight end positions. You're seeing Noah Fant, Oscar Delp, Juwan Johnson get a lot of footballs. Bryce Lance, Barian Brown's even getting into the mix as well. But Devon Bailey, of course, is getting a lot of work, and we're going to talk about some of the other guys as well. But the big things with Tyler Shough is comfort, confidence, and command of the offense. Those are the highlights for the Saints quarterback so far. So hopefully in minicamp, he can continue to build the momentum, iron out some of those issues, and we can be ready to roll week one. Now, another winner for OTAs, in my opinion, is Saints running back Alvin Kamara. I think that he's definitely a winner for the Saints OTAs because he made that surprise appearance. I think it was actually pretty cool to see Alvin Kamara, who's in the midst of contract conversations with the New Orleans Saints, make his presence known. He typically doesn't show up to the voluntary portions of OTAs, but he made a surprise appearance last week, which I think was really telling that he wants to be with the New Orleans Saints. I mean, in my opinion, the ball is entirely in the court of the Saints front office, and he even spent some time not just participating at OTAs last week, but even being open to media and having conversations with those guys. And here's one of the really cool quotes that he had last week on my side. I feel no beef or bad blood. I'm going to do what I do every year. I'm going to train and be ready, and we will see what happens. I think it's very obvious. Alvin Kamara, he is committed to the New Orleans Saints. I don't think it's very obvious that the Saints are committed to Alvin Kamara necessarily. The ball is absolutely in the Saints' court. Like, Alvin Kamara has put his hands and shown his cards. Like, it is, he wants to be here. He's showing up to the voluntary portions of practices. He's going on podcasts and saying he wants to be in New Orleans. He's excited to work with Travis Etienne. Like, he obviously wasn't present this week at OTAs. That's totally fine. He was present last week. I think that in itself is a win. Kellen Moore did say, though, he expects Alvin Kamara to be at mandatory minicamp from June 16th to 17th, which is coming up next week. So with Alvin Kamara, I think that it's very obvious the future's in question from the Saints standpoint, but for him, he wants to be here. And I think that, perfect world, we see Alvin Kamara take a pay cut. He's back in New Orleans. We get to see a two-headed monster of Travis Etienne Jr. and AK in the backfield supporting Tyler Shough. I think it would be really fascinating, and Kellen Moore could get super-duper creative in finding ways to make big plays happen with both of those guys and Tyler Shough running the charge. Now we got some more winners and a couple of losers to discuss here in just a few minutes, but first we want to thank today's presenting sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to win money while watching the NBA Finals, that big soccer tournament that's about to get going, the hockey championship, Stanley Cup is underway. You can also win money while watching football, baseball, and other sports too, like darts, tennis, golf, esports, and racing. There's so many ways to play Prize Picks, and one of my favorite ways is to play every single time I watch any sort of live event, especially if there's big stakes, like the big soccer tournament coming up. We got a lineup here on screen for you. I'm taking the more on all three of these projections. Bruno Fernandes, Kylian Mbappe, and Lionel Messi. I'm going with the more on all three of theirs. The projected stats, because I believe life is too short to project the Lex. And we got a max discount for this tournament as well over on PrizePicks, so make sure you take advantage by downloading the app and use that promo code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks has all sorts of cool promotions and deals going on all throughout the year, just like the one you saw on screen just a few moments ago. You should check out Taco Tuesday. They also have a lot of fun things going on every single week. PrizePicks is the best place to enhance your game viewing experience. So download the app, use our promo code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Shout out to PrizePicks, where it's always good to be right. Another big winner, in my opinion, from Saints OTAs is starting cornerback Kool-Aid McKinstry. This player is one that I have my eyes on through training camp preseason. I am really, really excited to see Kool-Aid McKinstry. And according to all reports that I've seen, he has been locked down all summer. And a really cool part about Kool-Aid McKinstry is how engaged he seems. He's always talking to teammates. He's always talking to coaches. He's hardly been targeted because he's eliminating that side of the field. Quarterbacks aren't wanting to throw towards him because he keeps making plays whenever the quarterbacks do throw the ball to him. Now, it's not to say that he hasn't given up any completions, but he's definitely forced a handful, and he's been really impressive from all accounts. Now, year 3 is very important, in my opinion, for Kool-Aid McKinstry. He needs to prove that he can be the guy for the Saints offense. He was drafted by the New Orleans Saints. In fact, they traded up for him in the second round just a couple of years ago to be the lockdown guy, to take over for Marshawn Lattimore. And there's been highs, there's been lows, but Kool-Aid McKinstry in year 3 needs to prove that he can be the guy. And I honestly think that he can be that guy. He's just got to get on the field and show that he can do it. Now, Kool-Aid McKinstry did also speak to media during OTAs, talking about how he's worked on improving throughout this offseason. He's been watching a ton of film. He's been trying to avoid making the same mistakes over and over again, getting out on practice, getting into the film room, observing, learning, and trying to grow as a leader as well, which I think is really cool. Kool-Aid McKinstry saying, never get too satisfied with where I'm at because I feel like I've still got a ceiling to reach. The ceiling is there. My job is to keep my head down until I'm there. And I love that mentality from Kool-Aid McKinstry. I love the maturity that he's displaying. And I have really high expectations for Kool-Aid this season. Not just in terms of a production standpoint, but a leadership standpoint as well. I want to see him take over on the defense as the guy in the defensive back room, as a young leader that can be a long-term contributor and a long-term high-level player for the New Orleans Saints. I want to see him lock down his side of the field. I want to see him show and display the growth that he's been talking about, because that's been a big thing for him this offseason. I'm really, really eager to see number one get on the field. I can't wait to see how Kool-Aid McKinstry's development continues to take its course, and I really do believe that he's a special player and he has what it takes to be a really good football player for the New Orleans Saints defense in Brandon Staley's scheme. I believe in Kool-Aid McKinstry, but do you? Sound off in the comment section. Give me a yes or a no. I think that Kool-Aid has not been perfect by any means. I think he definitely needs to be better, but I do think that he's somebody that's headed in the right direction, and I'm really excited to see what year 3 has in store. Now let's talk about some more winners here. Wide receiver Jalen Polk, going back to the offensive side of the football. He has been consistently showing up. He's been turning heads. He's been catching the attention of all of the Saints media. And I think with Jalen Polk, he's somebody that needs to keep consistently showing up. And I really do appreciate that number 13. It's weird to say that that's not Michael Thomas. It's really important for him to do that because he is not fighting an uphill battle, but he's got to prove that he can be somebody on the roster that can be a contributor and be a weapon for Tyler Shough. And we're going to show a couple of things from Nick Underhill, who had some awesome write-ups all throughout OTAs. Make sure you go check him out over on NewOrleans.football. Him and his team do an excellent job. Jalen Polk, from Nick Underhill, he said that he wrote this down at one point. He looks like the real deal. That is probably as far as you want to go right now, because this is still an OTA practice without pads, but he keeps doing things that make him easy to notice. More from Nick Underhill on Jalen Polk. He looks more compact and sturdy, and the early work suggests that he can function in the middle of the field. Nick Underhill was saying that He provides a different speed or a different size and a different type of receiver. Not somebody who could just attack the borders and get downfield, but somebody who can operate over the middle and be that safety blanket for Tyler Shough. If those other reads aren't there, they can dump it off to Jalen Polk in the middle, who can succeed in traffic. And I think that it's cool that throughout OTAs, he's been proving that he can win in traffic and he can operate over the middle as an option for the quarterback when all things, go to shit, as they tend to do whenever you're playing football. Now, Jalen Polk also talked about Tyler Shough, and I think that this is pretty cool. I'm excited to be one of the guys that he can go out there and count on when it means the most. He does everything well, and he prepares at a high level. I personally believe that Jalen Polk does have a spot on the roster, and I do continuously put him in our roster projections for the Saints wide receiver room. Obviously, there's a lot of guys in the mix, and I think that the overall talent level of the New Orleans Saints wide receiver room has been raised, and that's a good problem to have, because in the past few years, it's been kind of all hell breaking loose behind Chris Olave, and it's just been like a bunch of guys just competing and not really being elite. But we do have so much more talent now. But with Jalen Polk, he's competing with Bryce Lance. He's competing with Devon Bailey. He's competing with Bub Means. He's competing with Kevin Austin Jr. A lot of guys in the wide receiver room. I do believe that he is going to etch himself a spot on the roster. The Saints traded for him and invested in him. He's a second-round pick. He does have a lot of talent. The Patriots did not utilize him correctly, and I can't wait to see how Jalen Polk is used, especially in training camp during those joint practices in the preseason. You're going to see a lot from him. Now, Jonas Sanker is another huge winner, in my opinion, maybe the biggest winner of all. Maybe not, but I think that his role this season was definitely something that was in question, not because he couldn't contribute, but it was more of where is he going to contribute. And it seems like it's more of a defined role for Jonas Sanker. He's done a ton of work operating in that star spot in Brandon Staley's scheme, replacing Alontae Taylor as he left in free agency. And with Jonas Sanker, I think he's a perfect fit in that spot. I've continuously said that. We've had entire videos about why he could fit in this spot. And Brandon Staley putting him there and is very impressed. I got to say, I'm really, really excited to see that that's been the case, because now you're going to get to see Jonas Sanker down in the middle and then Julian Blackmon and Justin Reed back deep. I think that's a really good safety trio to have in Brandon Staley's defense. Nick Underhill adding this for Jonas Sanker in the star spot. He makes sense. Sanker is a dynamic playmaker whose movement skills make him pop. I think the thing that makes him a great gunner on special teams could serve him well as a blitzer. He's good in coverage, incredibly smart, and after practice he told me that a lot of the same techniques he used last year on defense translate to the star role. Now, we did do a full video about Brandon Staley discussing Jonas Sanker. There's a whole breakdown about it. We went in depth for like 15, almost 20 minutes. Brandon Staley talking a lot about Jonas Sanker, we went through like his snap alignment last year, why he's going to succeed, a ton of stuff. So go check it out on the channel. Just go search for this thumbnail. That's the video you're looking for. It's really, really fascinating. But Staley will give you a little bit of a tidbit from that. He said this on Jonas Sanker in the star role: it's such an important position. The way that you play nowadays, he's got the characteristics for that position. Now, what exactly are those characteristics? I think they are the same things that are going to be contributing factors as to why he's going to be a massive breakout player this season for the New Orleans Saints defense. He's extremely versatile. He's extremely disruptive. He's a great tackler, and he's very, very fearless. He has a nose for the football. He's just a playmaker, and I think that he's somebody that absolutely thrives in that, or can thrive in that star role. He has a high football IQ. He has all of the things that you want in that star spot, and on top of that, he can be a good communicator, and I think he has a lot of opportunity to grow and a lot of ability to transform into an even better player. I mean, look at the success that Brandon Staley had with Jalen Ramsey back in Los Angeles. I'm not saying that Jonas Sanker is going to be Jalen Ramsey, but damn it, I think we might have something really fun with this guy in the star spot. Now, if you're excited to see Jonas Sanker be the star, hit the thumbs up icon and go ahead and comment a star down below as well. Let's show some love to Jonas Sanker, because I'm really excited to see him on the field. Now, I want to give a little bit of an honorable mention here for a winner. Vernon Broughton, the defensive tackle, second-year player out of Texas. I remember the Saints drafted him last year. He has been getting a lot of first-team reps next to Brian Brzee, which I think is really telling. He was somebody I was extremely impressed impressive last year. He suffered an injury in week 1, and we never saw him again throughout the rest of the season. But he was somebody that was turning a lot of heads and putting a lot of people on notice. So I think Vernon Broughton is starting to carve out a role and could be potentially a starter week 1 for the New Orleans Saints, as long as he stays healthy. So keep your eyes on him as we go through mandatory minicamp and training camp as well. Now let's talk about some players in terms of injuries that were ramping up. We're not going to call them winners. We're not going to call them losers. We're just going to say that they didn't necessarily do a ton, mostly due to injuries. Jordyn Tyson, he participated some, but not a ton. His ramp-up period is something that a lot of people are paying attention to. Christen Miller didn't really participate hardly at all. Kendre Miller did get some work on day 3 in the 11-on-11 drills, so that is really promising. He's coming off an ACL injury. Oscar Delp, he got a little bit banged up, but it shouldn't be too concerning, but he was held out due to some injuries. Zxavian Harris, he also didn't play much due to some injuries. Mason Tipton as well. So when it comes to the players ramping up and dealing with those injuries, of course it's concerning. Of course it's something that we're all going to have an opinion about, but honestly, I'll just say there's no really need to panic too much. Like, you just don't need to risk injuries this early, because in my personal opinion, yeah, you want to install the plays. You want to get them acclimated. You want to get them ready. You want to get them reps. You want them to knock the rust off and all that, but like, what if something happens? What if Jordyn Tyson gets hurt? Or what if Kendre Miller gets hurt again? Or what if somebody gets injured again? Like, that's not what we want. We want these guys to be available in November, December, January, hopefully February. Like, that's no reason to be concerned if they're not participating in voluntary workouts in June. Because, look, nobody's going to look back and say, oh, wow, I wish these guys would have participated more during voluntary workouts in June. Like that, nobody's going to say that. But on the flip side, if you get hurt, it's like, well, why the hell was he participating in voluntary workouts? It's June. Like, just there's no need to risk those injuries. And like, guys that are ramping up, I'm not calling them losers. I'm not calling them winners. They're kind of just something that you have to acknowledge and understand that, like, it's hard to get a gauge on him. A very limited sample size, very limited reps that we've seen from him. But Jordyn Tyson does look good from the reps we've seen, although the rest of the guys we just haven't seen a ton of. So it's just kind of Oscar Delp, excuse me. He also somebody that has looked good whenever he's on the field. But again, we just haven't seen a ton of them. So there's no need to really risk injuries. Let's get them to minicamp, training camp, and we'll get a better read on them later. Now let's talk about a few losers here. I'm going to go ahead and name Bub Means, wide receiver out of Pitt. I'm going to name him a loser. He's going into year 3 with the New Orleans Saints. He's been getting a lot of work with the special teams unit. Hasn't really stood out much in 7-on-7 drills. But guys like Devon Vele, Jalen Polk, Ronnie Bell, Kevin Austin Jr., Bryce Lance, they're all having moments. Bub Means having some as well, but like, they're all having moments. And, you know, with Bub Means, he wasn't drafted by this regime. He's kind of fighting an uphill battle here. But I do want to point out one thing that Nick Underhill said in one of his OTA write-ups. I think this is extremely interesting. Bub Means has an impressive physical build. Among the wide receivers, he looks like he spent the last 2 years in the weight room and looks like someone who could hold his own against anyone over the middle. So if he can carve out a role on special teams and get that, you know, last wide receiver spot, then maybe that's a spot or a way that he can end up on the roster. But I do think that he's fighting an uphill battle considering all the investments that the Saints have made in the wide receiver room since Kellen Moore's taken over. It's been a lot. So Bub Means could be on the outside looking in. Now, Dalys Beanum, I'm going to say also is an OTA loser. He left practice last week early with the trainers, wasn't present this week due to injury. Not necessarily sure what that injury was, but he's fighting an uphill battle in an extremely crowded cornerback room. I think a guy like Martin Emerson Jr. absolutely has a spot on this roster. His length is something that stands out according to all reports. He's experienced. He's a good football player, just coming off of that Achilles injury. So with Martin Emerson Jr., Kool-Aid McKinstry, Isaac Yadam, did I say Quincy Riley? Quincy Riley, like Jaden Price. You got a lot of guys. Beanie Bishop, TJ Hall, Lorenzo Styles. Like, there's a lot of guys in the mix. Dalys Beanum just not being available and being injured just really isn't going to help his case. Now with Nathan Shepard, we're going to say this could also be an Zxavian Harris situation, but again, you know, we're going to not necessarily call him a winner or a loser here. But with Nathan Shepard specifically, he was absent throughout all of OTAs. Again, he's a veteran. These are voluntary, but he wasn't there throughout all of OTAs. But when guys like Devon Godshaw were, and, you know, you saw Chase Young there, you saw Carl Granderson there, you've seen a lot of people showing up, Brian Brzee, Vernon Broughton, a lot of people showing up for the Saints defensive line, and the younger guys are getting a lot of work, and I do think that Vernon Broughton, we mentioned him as an honorable mention offseason or OTA winner. He's somebody who could take his spot, and Vernon Broughton very well could dethrone Nathan Shepard, and the Saints could then move off of Shep and save $4.7 million if they cut or trade him. It's post-June 1, so either way you do it, you save $4.7 million. I definitely could see that being the way the New Orleans Saints go if they feel comfortable with the guys they currently have in the mix. Now, hit me up on social media if you want more Saints videos, if you want more content by fans, for fans, 100% free. I'm on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Linked down below. Just search Trizzy Trace on your favorite platform if you want to make it a little bit easier. But hit me up. Let's continue this conversation, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.